Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Picked Off Baseball Podcast. I'm your host, Braden Neal, and this week we have a special guest, a fill-in co-host, if you will, and somebody with experience with what we're about to talk about this week. My good friend, he's been on the show for Mitch Murrell. Mitch, how you doing?
Good, man. How are you doing?
Making it. It's the best time of year for college baseball. It's Omaha. We are officially here. The field is set, and there's a lot to talk about.
Yes, there is. There is a lot to talk about.
There is indeed a lot to talk about. How are you feeling going into Omaha here, just watching the field? How do you feel about the field so far?
It's an interesting one, that's for sure. A couple mid majors, a couple underdogs that were three seeds going into the regional. A lot of number one seeds getting beat. A lot of like number one national seed Vanderbilt. Texas didn't make it out of their regional. Uh, just a lot of surprises. A lot of big upsets.
Indeed, and so real quick, that field is Louisville, Arizona, Murray State, the fourth four seed to make it to Omaha, Murray State, Oregon State. I've already said Arizona, didn't I? UCLA. Mine's going blank again.
LSU,
LSU,
Arkansas.
Arkansas, yes, and Coastal Carolina. Um, Again, not as SEC heavy as years previous, but it's certainly very interesting. There's a lot more mid majors. Only one ACC school made it this year. Of course, last year it was the SEC ACC Invitational with four teams in the SEC and four
Yeah,
teams in the ACC. Um, Certainly some interesting matchups, I guess. This to me was a little bit underwhelming. I mean, the field itself was exciting during the tournament with the upsets and such, but once you've sort of gotten to Omaha, to me, this doesn't have as big of names as maybe the casual fan would want. I'm obviously not a casual fan, but the casual fan will probably be looking for big names. I'm interested to see how that maybe impacts ratings and things. But this Murray State team, let's talk about them for a second because we have some experience with them. This Murray State team is fascinating. That's really the
they
story in
hit.
this whole thing.
They
They
hit.
can very much hit, and they can play really good defense. That is
They
something
do play.
that is something really underrated in their game, and you and I watched it firsthand in Oxford. They made every routine play just about. Um, they
Every play they needed to make, they made. Every ball they needed to get through, got through. It's just like
yes,
things were on their side, and they just ran with it.
and
They
you
played great baseball.
yeah, and I mean and you know this as well as anybody that if you know when you're hot, you're hot. I mean you've been there. You've gotten all the way to Omaha on a very hot team. You've seen it. So I mean, and there's nothing really stopping them right now. They ran into a little trouble with Duke there, game one, but come back game two and three, and they got key hits when they needed it. And they're in Omaha.
Yep,
It's
they are. And what were you saying?
no, you go ahead. It's just fascinating. It's unbelievable.
Especially that Duke series that they just got out of. That went down to the wire. If
Great game
I
three.
was, I was almost heartbroken for them if that wouldn't have gone their way because that called in the game that got reversed was a little controversial. So I was hoping they'd finish it after that got reversed.
So actually, I'll talk about that for a second. 'Cause it's kind of crazy. You don't see this very often. So Murray State is not away. They have a runner on, or Duke has a runner on first. They're up. Was it two runs? And so basically, they ground into a double play. Except the runner breaks up the play at second. The umpire calls interference. Two outs. They dog pile. I mean, so the team's out of the dugout. They're on top of the pitcher, dogpiling. And then they go to replay to see if it was actually interference or not, whether the runner was out of the baseline. And it was the correct call. He was inside the baseline, like it was fine. But then you sort of were worried for a second, like, well, they've already dogpiled. They literally just got on top of this pitcher. How do you bounce back? But credit to Murray State, get a ground ball right to first base. Baseman takes it, and the Racers are headed to Omaha.
Yep, I'm glad. I'm glad that worked out for him because that would have been tough if you celebrate a win on the field and then end up getting walked off in the same
Yes,
inning.
like the
So I was pulling for him after that happened for sure.
absolutely, and you and I know some mutual people there. Matt Parenta, pitcher there for the Racers. I just
Yeah,
want to
big
let him
friend
know.
of Big Rento is a good friend of ours.
Indeed, very
Really,
happy for
really happy
him.
for him.
Yes,
Really happy.
you talked about it. He was hurt on the 22 team that won it all. He wasn't didn't get to go, and so he finally gets to go to Omaha. I'm really happy for him. He went to Indiana State after he was at Ole Miss. Was there for 2 years. Didn't quite hosted a regional. Didn't quite make it to Omaha, and then finally here at Murray State, they come out of nowhere and they're in Omaha. So, congrats to Matt. What a great guy he is, and so really happy for that team. Um, it's obviously talked about it last week on the podcast at nauseum. It hurt watching them beat us, but I mean, if you're gonna lose to somebody that's gonna go to Omaha. So,
All right.
um,
Yeah, that was a tough one for our guys. Obviously, I know me and you were right there watching
oh,
every game, but
yeah,
it was tough on us. But if one team had to go to Omaha, I'm glad it was them.
exactly. And then you've got some other interesting teams. To me, you've got the two, and it's yes, partly because they're SEC schools, but I just think legitimately very talented and very deep in Arkansas and LSU. Um, I would have told you, and I even said it on this podcast, my clear favorite to win this thing this year, as much as Ole Miss fans will hate this, is Arkansas. But the way this LSU team is playing right now, I don't know. This LSU team is really good. They're
Yeah,
very, very, very good.
I think the best game besides the championship series is going to be this first game against LSU and Arkansas. If I had to, if I had to take a guess, I think probably Ace versus Ace. If I had to guess, and they both been playing really good ball. And like you said, I think Arkansas's got a good shot at it, but they got to get through them first, and that's a tough game one. And
It's
it's tough. It's really tough on the loser of that game to claw their way back. That's tough to lose game one.
I almost pity the either of these two teams here. I mean, I don't like either one of them, but I really do have some pity. So you play just an absolute gauntlet of hell in the SEC for 10 weeks. You go play the SEC tournament, then you go all the way, get through your regional and your super regional, and then your first game in Omaha. When you think you finally, you're done with the SEC, nope, you've got to beat another SEC, one of the best SEC, two of the best SEC teams, and you've got to win that game to even, get in the winners bracket to start the whole thing off. It's like the gauntlet never ends for them.
Well, that was like when we first got to Omaha and realized two out of the four, two out of the other three teams on our side of the bracket were in the SEC West, and Auburn and Arkansas.
Yeah, so
It's like, man,
you
we can't
you
ever get
play
away
game
from
one.
these guys. We got to scratch and claw every time we play them. We can't ever get away from them.
It's just
So
like
it's
you.
tough when you get in there and you see another team in your conference, and you got to get through them first.
It's unbelievable. It's like, hey, so we just got this insane gauntlet, and then hey, let's go play Auburn and Arkansas for four of the craziest games you've ever seen, or three, I guess. And then you basically have already played the finals at that point because then Oklahoma comes in, and they didn't really stand a chance. But it's like they didn't catch a break, and I mean this is with the least amount of SEC teams in the field that I can remember, and you still get an SEC opponent in the first game. There's literally two of you, and you end up in the same bracket.
Yeah, that's tough.
Um,
Definitely not favorable.
no, but this is another interesting story. So the most interesting story I think, besides Murray State, is Coastal Carolina winning 23 games in a row. They really hot. They go and do a really great environment in Auburn there. Get two from the Auburn Tigers and Butch Thompson, and then they're on their way to Omaha. And I think this team's legit. This is not just the old Billy, Sun Belt, just chucking along and little engine that could. This team is really, really, really good and has been consistently all year. 23 games in a row, it's very hard to do, and they are very hot.
Yeah, they're a good team. I watched that series with them in Auburn, with Auburn, and they fought them tooth and nail for both games. They ended up getting two wins in a row, but that was a really good series as well. And Auburn had a great year. I mean, we saw that they were a really good team, really solid team, bunch of old guys that had been there for a while, could really pitch, could really hit, and Coastal Carolina just matched them everywhere. Came in
And they
clutch
also
and
they had some really good
also
freshmen too.
came from behind a couple times. Like really good series, good team.
They dug deep, and I mean, um, it's Coastal. They have a really good baseball environment. They're built for baseball, and the Sun Belt is a really underrated conference in baseball. You could argue that Troy got snubbed. Troy was a very good team who I think should have been in the tournament, to be honest. Then you have a team in Southern Miss who is very good, of course, hosted and got eliminated by Miami, who would lose to Louisville. And to be honest, what was at least the final in game two were mostly very good games. The second game kind of got away from Miami there at the end, but the third game for sure was an excellent game. Switching to that between Miami and Louisville, Louisville led by Ben McDonald wins that one 3-2 in game three to send the Cardinals back to Omaha, a team that had not been to Omaha in a minute, but had very much had some success under McDonald, kind of similar to Ole Miss. They had two very shaky years. People were questioning how long he was still going to be around, and here they are back in Omaha.
Yeah, it's definitely a blue chip program. They've been good for a long time. Sometimes it just happens. Like you run into a couple rough years when you run a program like that so well for so long, and people tend to look at it and say, look at a half decent year and call it a bad year compared to every other year. Every other
Right.
successful year. So it's kind of to the average person looks like a down year, and obviously see how quickly they came back. So uh, I, I I'm not surprised Louisville's back in it, to be honest with you.
Nor am I. I
But
watched them at the beginning of the year in Arlington in that same series Ole Miss was in, and this team's really good.
yeah,
And
they
that was
were really
early
good, really
on.
talented. Yeah,
Um, and then so you've got some teams, and I'm just going to be honest, I'm not super familiar with Arizona. I watched them went 0-3 and got bounced in Arlington, and then I guess they just kind of had a year and they fought their way up. Won the Oregon regional. Oregon getting eliminated by Cal Poly, as we repeated 15 times last week. Cal Poly beat Oregon. Just FYI. So Arizona wins that one, and then they win their super, and they're going to Omaha. Not a whole lot to say about them in my eyes. Um, I keep thinking of interesting stories, but there is one more interesting story I think, and that is Oregon State doing something that in college baseball I don't think has ever been done. They played a completely independent schedule after the demise of the Pac-12. They still have the Pac-12 logo on their backstop. I just that cracked me up all weekend. But it's them and Washington State basically play independent, which independent in baseball really doesn't exist. Even Notre Dame, traditional, independent powerhouse in football, they play in the ACC in baseball. But they found a way to put together a schedule good enough to make them a top eight seed. They played 20 something games at home all year and like 60 something on the road or at neutral sites. Just an insane schedule. Got a top eight national seed, handled business with Florida State there, and the Oregon State Ducks have really, really been impressive this season. I know said I wasn't too high on them with the way their schedule was a couple weeks ago, but just like I and many others takes probably with this tournament, they look really bad in hindsight, but they pretty much showed up. They pretty much showed that no, we definitely earned it, and they played all the way through.
yeah, they're another one that always seems to have solid teams year after
Yes,
year, and they're just the ones you can't count out because they get like you said, get hot at the right time. But they were a good team all year. You just didn't really, you can't really, like you said, you couldn't really tell much by who they were playing if they were because they don't have a, like you said, they don't have a conference.
right.
But I mean, you can always pretty much peg them to be a contender at the start of every year. So it doesn't surprise me that they did what they did this year.
So you have the field, and we'll get to predictions a bit later. I think we'll do that towards the end of the show. But you have the field here, and we just discussed that. Mitch, you've been to Omaha. You've been on that stage. You've won the whole thing. You know what it's like to be there. A lot of people probably don't, especially if it's the first time for a team like Murray State and guys who haven't been there. What does that feel like heading into this? I mean, to the pinnacle of college baseball. What does this feel like?
It's awesome. You just kind of got to look around and soak it all in. I think that's what the makes the opening ceremonies great. You can kind of appreciate it and you can enjoy it. And then for a couple days, just take in what's all around you. And then when it comes down to game time, let's go. Like we're here, we're
Absolutely.
not here to have fun. It's a business trip. We're here to win something.
Absolutely.
And that was one thing that Coach B stressed to us when we left Hattiesburg was, I want you to enjoy this, but I don't think I stressed this enough the last time we went. But we're not just going to Omaha. We're going to Omaha to win a national championship. So that's have that in your mind. That's the goal. Like not just to get to Omaha, we're going to win a national championship. So
And
I think it's important for the teams that haven't been there yet or don't have a history of going there to just remember that because that's the main goal.
absolutely. And like I said, it's certainly something you want to experience, and it's an accomplishment just getting there. But the goal isn't just to get there. If you're good, the goal is to win. Um, that should be in anything in life, but especially in this. But for those unfamiliar, because I kind of want to pull the curtain back a little bit, for especially for those who haven't gotten to experience this, talk about the opening ceremonies and all those things. So for the uninitiated, what are those? So I know they have a big ceremony, but that isn't on TV anymore, but used to be. That all the teams come in. So can you kind of explain that for those listening and watching? I guess.
So the first thing I remember we did was we all met up. I believe it was on Creighton University soccer field. They had like a dinner set up for us, like a buffet style dinner. All the teams had their own tables, and then they had like games and stuff set up all over the field for us to play and just hang out with each other and whatnot. And then we all kind of made our way like into a parade going into the field. And once we got in the field, they individually called out each team, and we were able to walk from the center field wall all the way to home plate. They did a little fireworks show, introduced all of us, and then kind of congratulated us on making it there, and kind of laid the scene for the week for the 2 weeks. It was really cool. It was really cool.
I know when they close it out, it's been a long tradition. They play the trumpet. They play the trumpets to begin it too. It's like a bookend, like beginning and end.
To be honest, I don't really remember.
It's
There
probably
was so
all a
much going on.
blur. The
Really,
adrenaline
yeah,
needs.
yeah.
Um, I know. So a lot of teams will do really cool things when they get to Omaha too for the team on like rest days. Go to the Omaha Zoo. I know you guys went to the Omaha place for boys center, place for boys, something like that. For children.
Yeah, Omaha Home for Boys.
Home
Yeah.
for boys, yes. What are some of the cooler things you got to do while you were down there besides baseball? I know, like the zoo and such like that. What was that experience like?
Zoo is obviously cool. It's a really nice zoo that they have there. That's why I think um, it was really cool. That zoo was really cool. But like the Omaha Home for Boys that you were talking about was it was really cool to go there and hang out with them. It was really put things in perspective for you if you take things for granted or don't fully appreciate everything, and especially the opportunity we were given uh, to go to Omaha just to play baseball, and that's all we had to worry about at the time. And then you hang out with these kids who have problems you could never even think of, and they're getting up and doing what they need to do every day, and it kind of just puts things in perspective and helps you not to take things for granted. So that was cool too.
Absolutely. I mean, that's something, again, people take things for granted in life. And so maybe getting to see that can also sort of take you out of, hey, you're playing a game. You know, at the end of the day, you're
Yeah.
playing a game. There can be a lot worse things in life than losing a game. But I mean, and then, so if you haven't seen it, there's a documentary that the Ole Miss season crew, shout out Scott White, did with them following them around. And I saw going to the zoo, they followed Dylan DeLucia and Hayden Dunhurst. Who were you grouped up with? Like, who did you walk around the zoo with? 'Cause I'm sure there were some antics that ensued.
If I remember right, I think it was Jack Doherty,
Oh gosh,
Brandon Johnson, and I believe Tim Elko.
that's a crew.
Could be wrong. Kind of just meandered like little kids, just looking at everything. Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool, and just kind of made our way around, and you just ran into people.
You
But I
know,
remember having Brandon there for sure. I remember being with Brandon.
BJ. I never met Brandon, but I know we have a really good mutual friend in Andrew Sharp. And shout out Andrew if you listen to this. But yeah, I imagine JFD could be a trip on those things too. He's the best man. You gotta love Jack Doherty.
Dude, gotta love Jack Doherty.
Um, so I mean, yeah. So I keep saying but it's what it is. It's been a long week, people. Um, so like I said, so that was that. Like you said, you sort of get locked into game mode. What was getting locked in like for you? Did you just sort of flip a switch and here we go? And what was that like when you actually get out there on the field? Just kind of adrenaline sort of takes over. You barely remember it, or did you hear everything? Because that place was loud. Um,
Yeah, it was so game one against Auburn, it was kind of like you obviously walk out there and it's game time and you're like, whoa, because none of us had ever played there and probably never played in a stadium that big or had that many people in it in our playing careers. And you kind of just have to take it in. You're like, okay, this is the environment. Like, this is what we're rocking with. And then you got to get focused and forget about it. Because I think it's important to appreciate it for a second. And then if you get lost in it, then what's the point? You have to appreciate where you are and then lock in and focus. I think that was what we were really good about that whole time we were there, especially with the amount of Ole Miss fans there and all the support that we had. I think it was really cool and really tough on the opposing team. Whoever we played, it was tough.
yes. I mean, you use it to your advantage, and especially in game one and game two against Oklahoma, they start stealing early on the base pass just because they were not ready for what that place had become. I've watched College World Series vividly since I was 9 years old for my entire life, and I've never seen anything like that. Even when Mississippi State went out there, and Mississippi State, for all intents and purposes, and we'll get to this later, is a baseball school. Um, they didn't put as many people as we had there. The place was packed out, and I mean, there were times the camera was shaking, and you know it certainly played a factor there for Oklahoma. And so, yeah, I mean, you guys sort of just the whole time it seemed like you sort of just stayed loose. That was the key word there. Just instead of being a lot of teams can go in there and you're big stage and it's uptight, the team just sort of seemed to stay very loose.
Yeah, I think even after like that tough loss to Arkansas, what was it? Game three, I believe. No,
It
be
was the
game four.
Wednesday going into the finals, so you would have hadn't had to play Thursday. You played Friday, Saturday. So you played Arkansas game seven on Thursday. So that would have been Wednesday.
Yeah, so that was our third game. I think even after that game, nobody. I think Live said this in Belief in the movie Belief. He said he looked around and nobody was sad. Nobody seemed nervous. It was more like everybody's pissed off because we thought we were going to win that game
Yeah.
and we thought we should have won that game. And everybody was like, okay, like they got away with one. And tomorrow we're gonna handle business. Like we're not letting Arkansas take this from us. So that was that was one thing I agree with. That's what I personally thought too. Like I didn't think losing that game was going to play a role in the next day. I knew we were going to go out there the next day and beat them. I did.
And that's something you can definitely see that. I mean, it probably didn't hurt that you had a guy like Dylan DeLucia who you knew was going to go out there and be nails. That was the
Yeah, that
greatest
definitely didn't
pitching
hurt.
performance. Yeah, that was the greatest single game, one of the greatest single game pitching performances I've ever seen, especially on a stage like that. He just kind of went out there and was just unbelievable. I mean, what complete game shutout, right? 9 innings. Um, didn't
And it's
allow.
and the thing is, if he didn't, like that's what won it. Like because Connor Nolan was so good, I think he gave
Yes,
up two over eight complete, and
yes.
like so if we didn't have a shutout from Luce, like there's no telling what would happen.
It's
If he
like
didn't have such a good game, there's no telling.
I'll never feel bad for Arkansas, but like you look at their record, it's in their whole thing in Omaha, and talking about them being here this year is kind of big because they're literally. I don't know how Dave Van Horn sleeps at night. You're a drop pop up. Game one, game two, like it's over. A pop up in foul territory hits the glove and falls out. Oregon State wins that game and wins game three. And then you're insane. You've got Connor Nolan. You've got Moore and those guys and names Jalen names escaping me. You've
Jalen
got
Battles.
those. Yes. And then, I mean, just they were loaded too that year. And then you run into this buzzsaw of an Ole Miss team, and Dylan DeLucia and Hunter Elliott, and I mean, and Mal was closing things out, and you had Brandon Johnson on the back end, and and then I mean, it was they just ran into a complete buzzsaw of a team. Any other year, Arkansas would have won that. Any other year,
I think I definitely felt like the championship series was whoever made it out between us and Arkansas.
that
Like
was the
nothing against
championship series. It
Oklahoma.
might as well have been.
I thought that we were the best two teams in it just from how we played each other. I felt like we were the best two teams in it. No, nothing against Oklahoma. Oklahoma was really good too, but I don't know if we weren't on the same side of the bracket. I think we would both have met in the championship if we weren't both in the same side.
So, and from my perspective at that time, I was a little worried because the way it worked out is Ole Miss. I mean, if you would have won that said Arkansas game, if Gonzo, wouldn't have flew out there in left field and whatever, and that ended it, you had DeLucia and Hunter in the finals because we really didn't have a third pitcher. We didn't really use one. I guess we had used Derek Diamond a bit, but we had scored so many runs, it didn't matter. And then you were kind of looking at it going, okay, if we, get Arkansas right here on Wednesday, we don't have to worry about tomorrow. Luce doesn't have to go tomorrow, and we're set up for Dylan and Hunter. But no, and then you end up having to use Dylan in that game seven where he was phenomenal. And then as the days kept rolling on, and they announced Jack Doherty as starting pitcher, and I'm not even lying, I said he's going to do something incredible here and gives you five perfect innings. But was there any for y'all? And I've talked to other guys on the team about this that were there. It was like, hey, no, we just knew we were winning. We were going to beat the crap out of them once we got to Oklahoma. Was that the vibe when you were into that you knew you were going to beat Oklahoma?
I think uh, I think the confidence once we made it through Arkansas was that we could have beat the Yankees. Like obviously not literally, but like that was the confidence level it felt like of everybody in the dugout. Um, it was just like something I'd never been a part of before. Like everybody like in unison, just knowing that we can beat anybody, and that was really cool. Like I was like obviously you're never like certain to the point where it's cockiness, but unbelievably confident and that we were going to handle business.
And again, just to reiterate, when you weren't out there pitching, and I mean, like in the finals, what did that sound like in the dugout? Because that place was insane.
Yeah, it was like a football game. Like
Yeah,
that's the closest thing I can compare it to is like a home football game. But the crowd, like there was no silence ever. Like there was a
right.
constant buzz the whole time. And I could really appreciate it because I was in the dugout the whole time and I was on time chart for most of the games. And sometimes I would just lose focus and just start looking around because I was like, this is unbelievable. Like there's nothing going on in the game. And the fact like how loud it was at that time was just crazy to me. Like I couldn't believe it. It was so cool. It was so cool.
That's really cool. There was a buzz for sure, not just within the fans, but probably a quite literal buzz there. If
Oh,
Rocco's is any indication. Uh, so you
100%.
know what? This is kind of going all over the place, but we'll talk about who's going to win the actual tournament itself in at the end of the episode. But the more important one, the one that everyone wants to know, Mitch, who do you think wins the Rocco's Omaha Jello Shot contest?
I would bet my bottom dollar that it's probably going to be LSU. I would,
Really?
well,
You
I,
telling me
I would
LSU
think
likes to drink?
LSU just because I think LSU and Arkansas are neck and neck when it comes down to it. I guess it just depends on which team stays longer because they have to play each other.
Right.
But if LSU's there, through at least 3 or 4 games, I think it's LSU.
To be honest with you, LSU might. LSU's one of those teams. I mean, I'm sure they'll be upset by losing, but they're always there
Just
to be
because they
very.
travel so well.
Yes,
Like
so will
Arkansas, don't get
Arkansas.
me wrong, Arkansas will travel well too, but LSU, it feels like everywhere is Baton Rouge whenever they play.
They're calling Baton Rouge from wherever they are. It's
Yeah. Like
and and
it'll be home games for most of their games if I had to guess.
it's like when I was in Hoover and I watched was at the Ole Miss Arkansas game. It was a good bit of Ole Miss, a good bit of Arkansas, and a sea of purple and gold.
Yeah.
And they'll beat every game.
Oh yeah. They'll
Like
be
it
at
just
all.
and man, they cannot buy the Omaha Chamber of Commerce is hoping they make a run all the way through. They're like, yes, keep them here for as long as you can. They Rocco's probably had to call. So how much alcohol do you need? Yes. That was their. Hey, how much alcohol do you think we're going to need for this? Yes, a lot. They need to bring back the guy with the trumpet playing neck in Rocco's that day. That was great. Um, yeah, just it's going to be a wild ride there. I think the Tigers are going to have it, but it all goes to charity. So I mean, it's a good cause. It's always fun, but it's become one of my favorite parts, especially the national media. They are like Barstool and your whatever. They love to pick it up every year and just see how high it gets. I mean, it breaks a record every year. We like doubled state's record that they set the year before, then LSU broke ours, and then it's every year it's gotten more and more and more. Like who would have thought it Jello shots, but here we are.
Yeah. Pretty cool concept, like you said, because I'm pretty sure at least like 50% of the profits goes to a charity in Omaha or something like
It
that.
goes
And
to
or it goes to a local charity from the winning team or something.
Yes, it goes to a local charity of the winning. So, like, Ole Miss, for those unaware, has like Grove Grocery, where they give
Yeah,
food.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's what it was.
so that's what went. I think went to ours. Each university has a charity organization like that, so it goes to universities charity organization, like one of them, like a food pantry or something.
Yeah, it's cool.
Um,
Cool concept.
so we talked about it. You're currently in Starkville, correct? You're in a hotel in Starkville for your work and whatnot.
Man, I'm up here working.
That's a hey blue collar working man, Mitch Murrell.
Right.
So speaking of Starkville, they made a very big splash here. We didn't talk about it last week because, quite frankly, didn't have time to get to it. But Ole Miss, Mississippi State hires former Virginia head coach and national champion Brian O'Connor to a massive deal. He is now the highest paid coach in college baseball, according to many sources. He got an absolute massive deal. It's an absolute massive deal for state. He got incentives that he has the highest incentives of any coach, which means if he, for say, hosts a regional or wins the SEC or gets SEC Coach of the Year, his incentives are higher than any I've ever heard. He will get around 2.9, and if he gets all the incentives, which it's hard to rack up all the incentives in one season, I mean that's an additional probably 300 and more than that, um, maybe close to half a million. So um, quite a lot there for Mr. O'Connor. And something I found very interesting. We don't talk about other sports usually because this is a baseball only podcast, but to me this is very much ties into baseball. The SEC is obviously very football driven. They're very much that way in their NIL. Baseball is considered a major sport in the SEC, but they still want to allocate money for football. Well, Mississippi State has sort of had this dilemma of the fact that if you watch football, you'll know, not very good. They don't really have the funding that, say, any other school in the SEC has, and it really shows. Pretty good in basketball, and obviously they really care about baseball. They gave him the highest paid contract there is, and they've essentially, with the way this NIL and even with the revenue sharing and the House settlement, which we'll talk about later, has worked. They basically just showed a clear sign to Jeff Levy, the head coach of Mississippi State for football. Yeah, we don't really care about football, and we've just sort of punted on football. They've just kind of said, nope, we're going to invest in baseball and basketball. And I think this is I'm not saying that other schools will do this, but I think you look at the sport of college baseball differently when you see something like that. A school is basically going to say no to football and invest a lot of money in baseball. That is quite the phenomenon. Something I really didn't see coming, but if any school was going to do it, it was going to be an SEC school, and it was going to be a school like State.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting when every school has a cap, and to see which way they lean. Like you said, it looks like as of right now, it looks like state's going to lean towards baseball to put a lot of money into. Um, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see which schools lean which way, especially the teams that are good in football, baseball, and basketball,
Like Ole
and
Miss is
see where
now.
they go from there. Do
Like Ole
what?
Miss, like Ole Miss is now. You have Chris Beard doing a great job there with the men's basketball team. Obviously, Lane Kiffin doing a great job with the football team, and they have a great quarterback. One shout out Sim, but and then you got baseball, which at Ole Miss is since at least since Mike has gotten there has been. It's the only other sport. Fun fact that draws a profit besides football.
Yeah, I
It's
think
in,
there's 4 or 5 schools in the country that profit off of it, and I think for the longest time it was LSU, Ole Miss, and Mississippi State were the only three.
yeah, I think it's Ole Miss, LSU, Arkansas, and State.
Yeah, Arkansas a few
Maybe
years ago
Vandy
got into that. Hmm?
and maybe Vandy.
I don't think Vandy was,
It's too
but I could be
small.
wrong.
Yeah,
But yeah, I knew those four for sure, and I know Coach B. I I think it was. I'm not sure how long it's been that way, but I know Ole Miss has been profitable for a pretty good amount of time, which
which
is
is
crazy to think about because no other schools in the country are doing that.
nobody. And because I mean, really, it's and college baseball is expanding, it's growing. You see it by the ratings every year, the College World Series. But college baseball, to a certain part of the country, they look at you and go college baseball and laugh. Um, but no, here it's something that it's you're diehard. You can see it on this podcast every week. I mean, I started this thing with Jake, and then I have Mitch on, and people, especially me, I want to coach baseball, but my love for baseball didn't come from Major League Baseball or anything else. It came from college baseball.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think schools in other parts of the country are starting to catch. Like I think as it gains popularity, there's definitely more eyes on college baseball than there ever were, in my
More
opinion.
players want to be college baseball players, skipping the MLB because it's starting to hotshot them. They get to get some development and play in front of 10,000 people a weekend.
Yeah, and now you can turn down a big league contract and instead just go to 3 years of school while making what probably majority of, unless you're a first or second round pick, I mean, you're probably going to make, if you're that highly touted out of high school, you're probably going to make more when you go to college. So
And even
depending on who
then,
you are and what school you go to, but I mean, it's definitely never been more enticing to go to school.
and I mean, yes, you'll get a big signing bonus, but besides AAA, you do not get paid a lot of money in the minor leagues. Um, they get big signing bonuses, and then playing in front of 1,000 people maybe every week in uh, who knows South Dakota, and like it's not as glamorous when you're in the SEC, especially you're playing in front of it's Swayze, you're playing at Duty Noble, Fayetteville in front of 10,000 every weekend, and now you're getting paid a good bit. I mean, they're not getting paid. People think they're driving Lamborghinis. Mitch, I don't see your Lamborghini anywhere, but not quite. I'm not saying they're making a fortune, but I mean they're making really good money. Now with this house settlement, baseball has more scholarships too, so they're going to get more scholarships. 36 full. Um, so you're going to make a lot, probably more. Some would say, depending on who you are and where you're at, and you're going to get more exposure to major league coaches. And you've seen those SEC schools; they get hot shotted, or players who were in those schools and ACC as well, and other places get hot shotted to the big leagues very quickly.
Yeah, I was happy to hear about the 35 scholarships. That's pretty cool because
Long
obviously,
overdue.
obviously, especially now, not everybody's getting NIL money from the school. With how it's limited now,
Right.
I don't know what they were giving before, but definitely now when they have less money to work with, or at least less money to spread across however many sports are at the school, the 35 scholarships for baseball is pretty cool. I think they've been missing that for a while. I know it was designed to not leave like smaller mid-major schools that couldn't give out 35 full scholarships. I think it was always designed toward them, so it wouldn't be
Right.
seem
Well,
unfair for the
that
schools
had to do
that
with
afford
Title
it.
IX as well. Not to cut you off, it had to do with Title IX as well, with the way you had to allocate scholarships between men and women's sport. It really messed over baseball. Ron Polk had a quote, former Mississippi State head baseball coach and Georgia baseball coach, had a quote that I love to death. And so I didn't mean to just cut you off, but this quote popped in my head. He said, "When I die, I want to come back as a women's golf coach so I can get full scholarships." Uh, What a, it's one of my favorite quotes. He just like, because the NCAA is terrible when they're trying to kill baseball. This is back in like the mid 2000s. Now it's obviously much different, but yeah. And like you said, you can continue what you're saying. Sorry, it just popped into my head.
Yeah, it was. I think I get all the reasons why, but at the end of the day, I think they got with having 35 guys on an active roster. I think 11.7 scholarships was we got.
Ridiculous.
I think baseball got the short end of the stick, big
Very
time.
much so.
I'm
And
glad to
for
see that they're finally doing that.
and I mean, I don't think baseball will get the short end of the stick very much longer anymore. I know. I think this could hurt baseball. It's going to hurt all sports in the long run. But let's get into it. For those, I'm going to let the people in a little behind the scenes a bit. I have been avoiding this topic for months, but we've officially reached a settlement, and so I'm going to talk about it. I didn't want to talk about it because I don't want to have to talk about it every week before we reached a decision. Um, but the NCAA and the House agreed to a settlement for revenue sharing, in which schools could now pay the players themselves. Long story short, it was a big battle as to whether Judge Claudia Wilkin, who I believe is in California, would approve the settlement. This will be her last case ever. And there was just a lot of stupid things and debauchery and Trump putting in teams on college athletics and things to do about people with existing, schools, and how do you keep scholarships for the rowing team and the whoever else and don't violate Title IX? And is it going to pass? Is it not? Schools preparing for it but not knowing. Finally, about a week ago, it was finally accepted that schools can now start to revenue share on top of their name, image, and likeness. A remarkable day in the world of college sports. If you would have told people this 20 years ago, they would have laughed at you, but we're officially here. Schools themselves are now paying athletes, at least legally. Um, you know, so there's that. But yeah, it's a remarkable day for college athletics, and it's a remarkable day for baseball. But Mitch, what were your thoughts on it in general when you first heard the news?
I haven't looked into it as much as I should have, I guess.
Right. I don't blame you, to
I
be
don't
honest.
know. I don't know too terribly much about it. I saw that there were 35 scholarships for baseball, and that I was pumped up about that. But but the deal with the revenue sharing, I'm not really too knowledgeable on it, to be honest with you.
I'm
Why don't you explain it to me? Because I don't.
okay. I'm also not as knowledgeable, so but I do know a lot of this, and I'm going to give them credit because I've really listened to them on this. Credit to Neil McCready at Rifles.com, Chase Parham at 247, and Tyler Siskey, former Ole Miss co-office coordinator, football recruiting coordinator. I was also Alabama. They talk about this quite a lot. It drives Neil insane, but essentially, it's really a mess, and we could have an entire podcast just dedicated to this. But essentially, it's revenue sharing, so each sport would split. The athletic departments would be in charge of splitting the money up amongst the schools to pay the athletes instead of NIL collectives that were basically doing it anyway. And they get a lot of money, like a salary cap, um, and then they have to figure out how to split and divide the money to give to the certain teams. Like for instance, take a team like Ole Miss, or let's take a team like Florida, because I talk about Ole Miss often. Take a team like Florida. You're looking at them probably investing of $20 million. They invest 12 in football. Probably gonna, let's say they just won a basketball national title. Six, let's say with that, 6 million in basketball, and probably let's say eight in let's say that's two in baseball. So take that for example. You'll probably have something like that. But then the big question comes, well, how do you pay? Because they want to keep Title IX, which Title IX, I'm sure most of you know, but if you don't, long story short, basically ensures that men and women have equal rights in collegiate sports. How do you not cut women's sports, or even lower men's sports, the Olympic sports, if you will, because they're not drawing a profit. And so I don't know if any of you have taken math. I'm not very good at it, but something I do know is you can't revenue share from something that doesn't make revenue. Now I know that is a fascinating concept. So you can't take nothing. You can't take something from zero. So, because a lot of these schools, like we just talked about, Ole Miss, State, LSU, and Arkansas are some of the only schools to make a profit off baseball. Majority of the sports don't draw a profit. Football is really the only one that draws a profit. So there's going to be a lot of sports that have been cut. It's a massive conundrum, but yeah, it's very interesting, and there's a lot of detail. If you want to know more, I would look at Ross Dellinger. I would look at maybe some things like that. Listen, some other things if you want to dig into that. D1 baseball, I'm sure we'll have some great stuff there. If you want to dig into what that means, or if you know constitution, not only just constitutional stuff, but just how economics work in general within the academic environment, you can, hit us up at pickedoffpod@gmail.com. We would love to have you on. So maybe you can explain the entire thing, or if you want to hit us up on Twitter and Instagram at pickedoffmedia. Thanks, that would be fantastic. We would love that. But yeah, it's very complicated and much over my multidisciplinary studies degree. I'm not a law student or an economics student by any stretch of the imagination. But long story short, it's kind of a mess. But there you go. Schools now can just pay athletes with an allotment of $20 million.
Fair enough. I believe you.
Uh, And so, whether we're a pro sport or not yet remains to be seen. There's all sorts of questions about will the SEC leave for football? What does that do for baseball? There's a lot here, but that I think I'm just going to wait and sort of leave that to be drug out as long as I possibly can, unless there's demand for it. If you guys want to hear me talk about that, let me know. But I poor Jake, he would just be in the wilderness. But we would figure it out. Um, but yeah, it's a lot. But we'll just kind of see how it plays out. Obviously, 35 scholarships, like you said, really good for baseball. But yeah, we'll see. We will see indeed. Yep, that's really all I have with that. So, but let's just switch back to the present. Why don't we, real quick? So we had, like I said, talked about at the beginning of the show. We have our field of eight. All right, Mitch, I'm going to put you on the spot. Who wins the entire thing?
Who do I think's going to win it, or who do I want to win it?
Either or, you can do both.
I would like to see the Murray State Racers win it,
Absolutely.
but if I was a betting man, I would say Arkansas wins it. If they make it through this first game against LSU, I think Arkansas would win.
So I also want Murray State to win this. Want them to. If you were to make me put money on it, I think this is Arkansas's year. I think
Yeah,
Van Horn, like as much as and Ole Miss fans definitely hate Arkansas. I mean, and I definitely strongly dislike them. I hate them, but it's also I have a ton of respect for Dave Van Horn. I genuinely do. I actually had an interaction with Dave Van Horn our freshman year. We played Arkansas. He sort of came over to where I was and we talked for a second. And he kind of messed with me and we sort of laughed and shook hands. Um, so a lot of respect for what he's been able to do there in the last 20 some odd years. I think it's finally time they win it. The Lloyd brothers are really good. Zach Root's a good pitcher. They should be. Their pitching staff's pretty good. They should be doing just fine. They can hit even in Omaha, to where it can be hard to hit sometimes. I think they'll be doing just fine. I think Arkansas can win it. Look out for Coastal Carolina.
yeah, Coastal's a good team, top to bottom. They can compete with anybody. Like you worry about the like the mid majors like that, not having the same depth that the SEC schools or the other big Power Four schools have. But it just watching them through the regionals and super regionals, it never felt like they had a lack of depth anywhere. Like
No.
every guy they pulled out of the pen seemed to be a dude, and like I don't think they're lacking depth anywhere. I think they can compete with anybody.
And don't get me wrong, like when you looked at Murray State, they hung in there, but they gave up. You knew they were going to collapse eventually, or at least you hoped it. Especially even at 12-3, some I've heard that were writing articles about it just said that I think I'm writing the Ole Miss comeback article because their pitching is just done. Like, and they did walk a bunch, but their offense kept finding ways. I think if I'm Murray State, the thing I'm worried about is that even though they're not very home run dependent, like Ole Miss was, they're not true outcome at all. I mean, their center fielder, whose name is escaping me, number 10, their two-hole guy, very, very good. But there's some worry there for their offense. I mean, but as long as their offense stays consistent, I mean, I think they can. I mean, they can make a run. They're going to annoy the hell out of you. They're not going to go away easy.
No, they just hit, man. They just like you said, like they may not have the home run numbers that a lot of the other teams in the field have, but I mean, especially with Omaha being a big park, you really don't need the home run numbers. You need a
No,
bunch of balls fall in the gaps and fall in between that just find holes, and that's what
yes,
they seem to
and
do a lot of.
they're very good at that. And I think if they're going to win this, they're going to have to sort of discombobulate these teams. When you run into an LSU or an Arkansas, it's kind of what they did to Ole Miss. They're a complete 180 of how Ole Miss plays, and they're going to make really good defensive plays, and especially number 10 there that he kept just raking doubles. Just hitting him right there. It's a six hole, really wide stance, kind of poke it through. And there's a lot of land there in Omaha. It's extremely hot too, so that ball's going to jump. Um, and they're going to give you. You're going to, your infield and outfield is going to tire you out eventually. I'm fairly sure. Because they're going to hit the. They're going to put the ball in play. I was looking at the stats last week. Their BABIP, so batting average on balls and plays, an advanced stat, it's extremely high. It's close to 500. So that means the balls they make contact with have an average expectancy rate of being hit of about 500. So I mean, they can really really hit, especially when they put it in play, and they put it in play a lot.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's a pretty. I believe it for sure because
Absolutely.
the amount of hits that I saw, like it just felt like it was in the perfect spot at the perfect time.
Yeah.
Like I said, like I think every ball they hit has eyes on it because it just seemed like every single like every 50-50 ball, like you didn't know off the bat whether it was going to be hit or an out. It seemed like every single one of them just dropped for a hit. It was just unbelievable.
I mean, if you look at some of their advanced metrics, you're like, wow, it's phenomenal. I mean, yeah, every ball had eyes, like
And
every
they really impressed me with two strikes. They didn't give in with two strikes. They were every single like 1 through 9 was a tough out. Like
nope,
they didn't strike
yeah,
out.
nope.
They were going to make you.
We made number 10 strike out a couple times, but I mean, like towards the end there, but it's really just because they got tired. But I mean, you, if you run into them, the thing you're worried about, you can beat them, but you're thinking, oh gosh, I'm not going to have the pitching depth after we're done with them. Because we're going to have to use guys. You're going to have to use guys to beat them, and a lot of them. I think that's what they could end up doing. I don't think they're going to win it by any stretch of the imagination, but I could see them being the team that, like, if you run into them, they're the team that ultimately kind of kills you because you played them, and well, tomorrow we have, I don't know, name it, Arizona, and Arizona can hit, and who do we have left? We played 2 days in a row here, and who do we have left? I don't know, and then you're done because they've
I
tired you out.
I wouldn't count them out to win that bracket for sure. I like their odds in that side of the bracket. I think they start off with UCLA. I bet they beat UCLA to start.
I would agree
I
with
wouldn't be
that.
surprised at all. Wouldn't be
Uh,
surprised at all.
I mean, and if they
And I hope they
do, I mean, they're going to give you a hard time, man. They're going to be there, and they're not just, hey, we're the 4 seed, woohoo, we did it. No, they're ready to show up and play. I can
yeah.
assure you of that.
And you saw
Um,
that. You saw it from game one in the regional. They were there. They were there to play.
And you talk about belief, they believe. They
Yeah,
believe 100% they can win any single game they play. I mean, and they're not, hey, cool, we made it, guys, woohoo. No, they're here to win. They are here to win. They're dangerous. I think they're a dangerous team. And even if they don't win the whole thing, they could be a team that's dangerous for you and you don't realize it. They may not be the team that beats you, but they could be the team that beats you, if that makes sense.
100%.
Um, and then, like I said, honestly, if Arkansas doesn't win it, I want to say LSU, but with them being on that side of the same bracket, I don't know. Look at Coastal Carolina.
Who do they start out with?
Let me, I'm going to pull up the schedule right here while we got it so we can give you guys a rundown. Um,
I just really like Arkansas because of how well they played against Tennessee. Like Tennessee never had a second to breathe against Arkansas in either of those two games. Arkansas just kind of put it on them.
no, and they especially did game two. I mean, really just dominated them. Let's see here. So pulling up the bracket. What, okay, so let's see if we can find the schedule. Great podcast here, but I don't want tickets. I just want to know what times the games are. So yeah, pulling up the bracket here. Um, can't good grief. College World Series schedule. There we go. 1 second, people. While I'm doing that, yeah, just any other additional thoughts on some other teams there, Mitch?
Um, I'm interested to see what Arizona does because I had zero expectations of them making it out of Chapel Hill. I thought UNC was just after game, especially after game one. UNC just kind of rolled them in game one, and I didn't really expect much after that. But they winning two games in a row, and making it out of there was impressive. So I wouldn't count them out to be honest with you. Like they're a good team.
So
So,
yeah, that's something interesting too with them. I mean, they've gotten hot at the right time again. So your opening rundown of games. So Arizona and Coastal Carolina, a rematch of the 2016 College World Series Finals. That is your first game Friday, June 13th at 1 o'clock Central Time on ESPN. And then at 6 Central, you have the Louisville Cardinals against the Oregon State Beavers there for game two at 6. Then on Saturday at 1, the Murray State Racers face the UCLA Bruins at 1 o'clock Central. And then to cap it off, number 6, the 6 seed versus number 3 seed, LSU, Arkansas, 6 o'clock ESPN there for that. So that's game one. I don't know how. I mean, I'm trying to find the bracket, but I mean that's how it starts off there. I mean, Murray State starts off against UCLA. Arizona starts. I think Coastal wins that game. I think they. I don't think they
I
lose
think I
immediately.
think Coastal beats them game one. I would say
Um,
Murray State. I like Murray State against UCLA. I take Murray State there. I like we said. I think I take Arkansas against LSU, especially with Root on on the mound. Um, and then what was the last one we were talking about?
um,
Oregon State, Louisville. I take Oregon State there.
and then LSU. Did you talk about LSU Arkansas?
Yeah, I said I take Arkansas.
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm pulling up the bracket. So I'm trying to see how this matches up. So it's Coastal and Arizona, and then they'll face the winner of Oregon State and Louisville in Game 6 on Sunday at 6 on ESPN2, and then or am I reading that? Then the losers game, and then oh yeah, Murray. They didn't update the bracket, so it's Duke slash Murray State. Murray State, UCLA matched up against Arkansas and LSU. Oh no, that's not good. That is not good. I mean, look, they beaten Ole Miss, but oh, Good luck.
Yeah, that side's a gauntlet.
And then obviously the losers game there, whoever went, then you kind of just go back and forth. Double elimination format. Think of it as two regionals on both sides, and then you have a finals. Like if you're familiar with regional format, it's two regionals. It's two more regionals and then a final, a best of three finals. So you basically
Mhm.
just play what you just played over again, kind of in a way. Like you just play a regional and a super regional again, if you want to think about it like that, maybe. I
Pretty
don't know if
much, yeah.
that's a way to think about it. But yeah, I think Murray State wins that first game, but if they win that second game against either Arkansas or LSU, look out.
They're in the driver's seat at that point.
Oh yeah, and then it becomes real. I think
I think
the
no, I think it's real right now, but I
it's
think
it's
once
it's
they
it's
do
real
that, it's
now.
like if they if they go 2-0 in that bracket, wow.
And then you're like, oh boy, this is. And then like
I would
for
have them as the favorite if they did that.
I think is the betting odds right now. Um, I think Murray State is the least favored, and Arkansas is favored at like plus 200. Um, I'm gonna look at that real quick. We normally don't go over betting odds, because you're not betting odds for college baseball unless you're Brad Bohannon, and you make really dumb decisions in a bookie in Cincinnati. We're going there. But yeah, no. He's like, hey, let's bet on Alabama and LSU just on a random Friday night in the middle of April that nobody else is betting on, and let's tell the bookie that I've got the guy on the line ready to fix the game. Like, you deserve the Darwin Award, man. Like, what in the world? Mitch, in all of you've probably seen some stupid things. You ever think anything that stupid?
I I don't know, man. That was something.
It was like Mitch is baffled. It's still baffling.
Yeah, it obviously doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but
Like
yeah,
there's no I don't know how you rationalize that, but
they're literally on the phone, and Brad's on the phone with the guy, and it's like I've wanted to talk about this in the podcast forever. So if people listening to this is very random, I've wanted to talk about this topic forever. I promise I'll get off of it. But you literally have the guy on the phone. Who is betting on Alabama LSU at that moment in Cincinnati? When of course the flags are going to go up. Betting odds. Good grief. So this is DraftKings here, not a sponsor. So I want the I want the champion. So Arkansas at plus 195 there for the Razorbacks. LSU at plus 230. Coastal at plus 600. Oregon State at a plus 650. UCLA at a plus 800. Arizona at a plus 1400. Louisville at a plus 1700. I would actually have that the other way around. And then Murray State at a plus 5,000 there for the Racers. Those odds have increased, and it increased a lot for Arkansas. Arkansas, when the initial ones came out, were favored at plus 195. That is according to DraftKings, not a sponsor. And then looking at FanDuel, again, not a sponsor. You have for the futures, so Arkansas favored at plus 200. The LSU Tigers favored, or not, I guess not. Keep saying favored, but the odds are plus 200, plus 230. Um, the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers at plus 650. The Oregon State Beavers at exactly the same plus 650. The UCLA Bruins at plus 850. The Arizona Wildcats at plus 1400. The Louisville Cardinals at plus 1,600, and the Murray State Racers at plus 3,500. So not quite the same amount of odds there from FanDuel. I'll pull up one more just to break the. Let's see if this is. I know it's the same thing. That's basically the odds now, most of that I'm seeing. But some pretty interesting odds there. The one that catches my eye, and I'm not big into betting, But the one that catches my eye in particular is how much of a jump Arkansas made in that DraftKings one. They've made a very significant jump. I guess some people really like what they see. And that game one, because that game one matchup is really vital. I mean, you can go from the losers bracket, but it's hard. Um, I guess they like the matchup between Arkansas and LSU, and uh, and if they like that, I mean, again, Mercedes can be hard. Don't underestimate them, but I mean, the Hogs could easily win. They're the favorite, and I think they should be.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be an interesting College World Series just to see how everything shakes out. Uh, I know it's kind of like you said was underwhelming as far as like what typically goes, but I think it's more exciting to an extent because there's a couple teams in there. Like I know Coastal's won it before, but they're not a consistent. They don't make a consistent trip there, and I think it's really cool that Murray State made it, and I'm really interested to see how they do there. Um, I think they can make some noise. I really do. So I'm interested to see what happens. I think it could get really interesting.
Absolutely, and so we both locked in predictions. That's it's been a good week. I'm really excited for this as usual. Even though Field's been underwhelming, it's Omaha. It's what you wait for all year. This is the best time of year. March can screw off. June is where it's at.
Yeah, I think I don't know about you. I think the regionals are probably my favorite week.
Oh, it's fantastic.
That's probably my favorite week of the year to watch sports, at least.
I'm like, if Ole Miss would, I'd been rotting in bed just watching everything. Squeeze play would have been on. We had four screens up and Mike Rooney, and we would have been there.
Yeah, I love regionals week, but obviously Omaha's awesome too.
And wonderful. If you ever get the chance, even if you're like not, you're maybe even if you have the money and your team's not in there, and you don't think you'll ever get the chance again, go. If you love baseball, you have to go to Omaha. You have
Yeah,
to.
I before we played there, I'd never been before, and it's weird. It's a lot different than you think it is on TV. It looks a lot different than how it looks on TV.
Right.
Once you see it in person, you never see it the same again.
I,
It was so cool. Even like Omaha as a city, I thought was
oh,
awesome.
it's a beautiful
So
city.
much to so much to do, like so many good places to eat. Like I thought it was really cool. Like the old cobblestone or the old town or whatever they call it.
See, I
All
didn't
the
when
restaurants
we
and
went.
stuff. You could walk anywhere. It was so cool.
When we went, we didn't get to really experience any of that because we drove 14 hours straight and then went to the game and then left. Like, because we originally were going to stay like halfway in St. Louis. And then tickets were selling so fast, we decided to just get up. And then my dad went and got the tickets um, that morning. Shout out to my dad. But he had to wake up literally with no sleep and get up in the morning to get tickets at 7 a.m. To get to because tickets were insane on the second market. But we did see a little bit just around the stadium, and it's a beautiful, beautiful city. You can say what you want to. It's a boring drive from Nettleton, Mississippi. Literally, you're driving through nothing. It is flatlands as flatlands get. But when you get to Omaha, it's incredibly hot. But I mean, there's again great food. From what I've heard, and just it's a really beautiful, really nice people, very nice people. The town really gets around this event. They really love it. The locals seem to love it every year. So yeah, if you love baseball, like it's baseball at its purest form, especially if you have kids or something, take your kids, like a father and son thing, or even if there's mothers out there. It's really fun. Go to the ballpark, watch as many games as you can. It's uh it's something you'll never forget.
Yeah, it's so cool. I
Yeah,
don't know what else to say. It's just really cool.
it takes your words away. It's that cool. Listen to this man doesn't have words. No, but yeah, it's special. Well, like I said, excited for that. If you want to, I think we're gonna have some additional content here on our YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, and if you're not, if you're out there on Spotify and Apple Land, go over to the YouTube. We later this week, I'm gonna have some content up. Maybe we will see. Stay tuned to social medias at Picked Off Media for that. Maybe we'll do some live streams late at night, discuss some games. I think that'd be fun. Jake will be back hopefully next week. And Mitch, thank you for coming. We always enjoy having you
Welcome,
on.
brother. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Great sharing some stuff there. You want to throw out your Twitter handles, Instagram handles, anything?
Nah, I don't even use them anymore, really.
He like barely.
As soon as baseball ended, I haven't checked Twitter once, I don't think.
You're not
But,
missing much.
but yeah,
I
just my
mean,
name.
yeah, it's Mitch Murrell, and it's not Merle, it's Morrell for the record.
Yep,
Murrell. Morrell.
bingo. You're one of the only people that spells it right. Be amazing how many people leave off an L or an R.
It's like Braden. Everybody spells it with a Y. It's Braden, and everybody spells my name with a Y, or I've seen put an E there or an O. Anyway, it's so yeah. They people constantly mess up my name, so I'm with you. So, with that being said, if you want to see our previous episodes, the previous two were on YouTube. The ones before that's on Apple and Spotify. If you're listening to it, leave us a 5-star review, all that good stuff. Again, follow us on Instagram at Picked Off Media. For Mitch Burrell, I am Braden Neal. We will see you, or at least I will see you next time. Bye bye.